Joining me now is former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Sean, thanks so much for joining me tonight on the U.S. Report. And I want to start out by having a little bit of a chat about this drama that's been going on around the Epstein files. This has become a huge media talking point this week. Donald Trump has told people to move on, but a lot of his supporters really are not convinced to do so, and they think that there still is some list of elite pedophiles that needs to be released and people prosecuted. Now, Sean, it's funny seeing Democrats suddenly demand this list be released because they used to think it was a conspiracy theory. But walk me through what's happening here, because it also feels like this has been mismanaged a bit, possibly by Attorney General Pam Bondi. What are your thoughts on where this all goes from here?
Yeah, really good question, James, because I think not only that, but I think a lot of folks in the media are misunderstanding this. It's not about a list. It's a proxy. It's a proxy for elites that have lied and misrepresented issues over decades. COVID, the Russia hoax, the 21 of intelligence officials. For too long, we've been gaslighted as Americans, and especially those of us on the right. And Donald Trump has brought an era of both transparency and accountability to so many things. So for many people, it's not about a list. I mean, I don't know how many people really care about Jeffrey Epstein. But as I said, it's a proxy for transparency and accountability for those people in this country that have been able to get away with things because of the connections that they have, et cetera. And so I think what happened was, and I think you're right, that there was a degree of expectation setting by this administration. The Attorney General brought in or helped lead a group of influencers to believe that there was more there. She created a series of binders that she handed out during a influencer day at the White House that led people to believe by the cover page, et cetera, that there was going to be information on Jeffrey Epstein. And then at the end of the binder, it said more to come. There'll be a part 2. So they created this expectation of more information to become. And then to suddenly say, yeah, nothing here, the video's nothing. People are like, wait a second, what happened? It's like the trailer to a movie and then there was no movie. I think that people are understandably frustrated. And this is why I think that people are misreading it as it's not about Jeffrey Epstein. It's about the issue in general of being lied to and accountability for people who have done wrong but have connections in the government. So what's the answer? I think going forward, they have to find a way to alleviate that. Now, what does that mean? They could catalog the information. Look, I get there's certain things that grand juries in the United States are not ready to release. There are victim statements. There's indecent material. But I think there needs to be some degree of accountability as to what the government has, why they can't show us certain things, and what things they could show us additionally. But they can't just say, move on. And it's not going to help them. I talked to a pollster, James, who says that there's a lot of erosion among independents especially. They wanted Donald Trump to bring accountability to government, to hold people's feet to the fire. And again, if they can find a way to do this, I think it gets back. But here's my big problem, James. We just passed the big, beautiful bill in America. Yep. Border crossings are at an all-time low. We're making moves on the Make America Healthy Again front by getting rid of dyes and matching a lot of what's going on around the world. These are big, big things. We defunded NPR and PBS here in the United States, something that conservatives have talked about for decades. And yet, the approval rating is not going up of the President Trump. Why? Because people see this one issue just jammed into the middle. So, James, here's the thing. They've got to figure this out. It's like trying to put a puzzle together and having somebody put their hand down in the middle of the puzzle and say, you can't finish it. They're not going to ever get those pieces together until they get the hand removed.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This is why I love having you on this show, because you absolutely bring this perspective. And I think the most interesting thing about the Epstein list is not so-called clients, but also who he moved money around for. And I think there might be some pretty interesting stuff around that. But also, I'm glad to have you here because you're a former press secretary, and I want your reaction to this breaking news that Donald Trump is apparently suffering from a sort of a chronic vein condition. It's not terribly serious, but it has been announced, and he's had a comprehensive exam. I'd just love your thoughts on how the White House, this White House, the Trump White House, has handled this bit of medical news, contrasted with the way the previous Biden White House handled news around the president's condition when the president was Joe Biden.
Great points on both fronts. So number one, let's get to the medical thing. And just trust me, you should never take my financial advice or my medical advice. But that being said, the research that I did today, 1 in 20 Americans have the same condition that President Trump has. So it is a normal condition. It happens as you, particularly as you get older, and it's obviously being treated. And there are ways to alleviate it, compression socks and whatever. Again, don't look at me for any kind of healthcare or medical advice, but a simple Google search told me that. But to your second question, James, think about the contrast in this. People were speculating rampantly on the internet yesterday about a bruise on his hand, and he was wearing compression socks, and oh my gosh, what happens? What does Caroline Leavitt do at this briefing? She walks through exactly what the situation is, what the doctor said, what the treatment will be going forward. This is the kind of thing that makes the Trump administration so different. And frankly, there's the through line with Epstein. The same kind of transparency that we're seeing and we're contrasting with Biden, we need to do throughout all of government. Today, the Trump administration did the right thing. And as someone who, a week ago, 10 days ago, testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee on how the media handled Joe Biden's decline, this was the right thing to do, the right way to handle it. And I applaud how the White House did it because it ended all the speculation. Everyone like me could go on the internet and go, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. And so I think kudos to them for how they handled it. And it continues to show the massive contrast that existed between not only how they did handle it in the Biden administration, but let's face facts. Biden officials are still taking the Fifth Amendment here in the United States, James. Now, remember, for those people in Australia that don't fully appreciate it, our Fifth Amendment in our Constitution gives you the right against self-incrimination.
Sean, I'm glad.
So when you see these people doing it, James, you got to say, what did you do that was so bad that you can't comment on it?
Well, exactly right. I'm glad you brought that up because here is some footage of Jill Biden aide Anthony Bernal taking the fifth here. Last week it was the president's doctor. This week it's Jill Biden's former aide. Have a look at this.
Mr. Bernal, did you ever advise President Joe Biden to pardon his son, Hunter Biden?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Bernal, was President Joe Biden fit to exercise the duties of the president?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
And Sean, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I had to play that grab because it's fascinating to me. Whether or not he was told that the president was not in any fit state to be president or carry out his duties, that's not a crime. And yet he's still taking the fifth on it. This tells me this is a huge, stinking cover-up here.
100%. And listen, two things. First, you mentioned Dr. Sean O'Connor, the first person that took the fifth. In America, and at least I don't know about the rest of the world, we have doctor-patient confidentiality. I would have bought that. You would have bought that, James, I think, if the doctor said, hey, I am legally, ethically bound that I can't reveal certain things that I talked about with my patient who just happens to be the president of the United States. Okay, I would have bought that. But he took the Fifth Amendment. What crime did he commit with this gentleman that you just played, who, by the way, is referred to as Jill Biden's work husband? What did he do? Because they further in the clip that you just played, they ask him, are you taking the fifth because you're trying to not incriminate yourself from a crime, which again is the basis of the Fifth Amendment to our Constitution. So he's asked a simple question. Was he fit for duty? Now, James, I can answer that question for him. As a Biden staffer, I would have said, first of all, I do not have the medical background to answer that question, but everything I saw led me to believe that he was fully capable. That's an easy answer. Anybody could have said that. It's a judgment call. That's not a lie. That's a judgment call. So you can't go to court for your judgment. It may be bad, it may be stupid, but that's not a legal problem. And so the question is, what did they really know? Now, here's the thing, James. They've also called Neera Tanden and other Biden senior officials to testify. Is this a one-off pattern that we've now seen two people in a row take, or is it going to continue? Because if it continues, it's not a pattern. It's a full-blown cover-up.
Absolutely right. Sean Spicer, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, James. Always appreciate it.